Hello, and thank you to everyone listening. Today, I have three fantastic stories for you. We start off on the Pacific coast near Tillamook, Oregon. You'll hear a woman tell in great detail what she encounters while walking her dog on the beach. And then we head a bit east to Wyoming to hear what three friends encounter in the woods outside of Jackson. Finally, we end up in Zion National Park to hear a missing persons case and the strange details of what was left behind. Ready? Great. Now let's get into the stories. Today's account comes from a couple who lived in Phoenix, Arizona for their first year of marriage, Todd and Erica. The two met in college while attending Arizona State University, and they decided to stay close to the area for a bit after graduating. Todd was working for LifeWell Healthcare Agency and Behavioral Center as an accountant, and Erica worked as a nurse at Phoenix Memorial Center. They both loved the outdoors, but they were getting tired of the heat in Arizona. They also felt like the area they were living in was getting more and more crowded, and they were being drawn to live in an area with more space, especially more outdoor opportunities. Without much thought, they decided on moving up to Oregon. Erica's parents lived in Tillamook, Oregon, and so the decision was easy. Basically, they wanted to be closer to family, somewhat in part because they eventually wanted to start a family of their own. So they both sent out job applications, and Todd quickly landed a job as an accounting technician at the treasurer's office, and Erica was hired as a nurse at Adventist Health Hospital. The move wasn't too bad, not very stressful since they hadn't really collected many belongings yet and never really dug their feet in Arizona. Within months, they were able to move and started settling in Oregon. They had a pretty easy time getting used to their new jobs and making new friends. As they suspected, they loved living there, and they loved exploring the surrounding area. It was close to both forested areas and the beach, which suited them just fine. But something seemed to be missing now that they were settling down. But they both knew it wasn't yet time for a baby. So within the first month of moving in, they decided to rescue a dog, a border collie named Waylon. Waylon was as happy as could be. You could tell that he was thrilled to finally be in a loving home and was completely full of energy. So almost every day after work, Erica would drive the 18 minutes or so to Short Beach and walk with him along the sand and the rocks. She looked forward to their walks and the relaxing sound of the ocean and walking along the rocky beach. There was even a man-made waterfall there and a huge sea cave that you can only get to at low tide. On this particular day, they were driving along the final stretch of road and were almost to the trailhead leading down to the beach when Erica noticed that the wind changed, and it seemed to be coming in from another direction. She didn't give it much thought at the time and was also distracted by trying to find parking along the main road at the top of the trailhead. Parking was basically just a small pull-out along the side of the road and not a proper parking area. Luckily, she found what seemed to be the last bit of an area available along the road. She parked the car and headed to the trailhead. The trailhead led down to the beach and was basically just a small sign next to steep wooden stairs that wound their way back and forth along the hillside until it finally reached the beach below. The entrance was so nondescript that it would have been easy to miss it if you didn't know it was there. Waylon knew the drill well. He bounded down the steps first. Erica and Waylon played a bit on the sand, running back and forth, playing fetch. All the while, Erica was again aware of the strange feeling to the breeze. And now it almost felt like it had stopped, which is obviously a very strange thing to happen along the ocean. It was weird enough for her to get this super creepy feeling on the back of her neck. And so after watching the sun start to go down, she felt it would be best to head back home. So she called Waylon over to her. They headed back towards the stairs. But as they were leaving the beach, she saw something out of place over by the water. She squinted, and it was a dog, a big one too. But there was no one else around, and the only other people nearby were a ways down the beach. In those first few seconds, it looked like it was just someone's dog heading out towards the water. But Erica was worried that it had gotten away from someone, and so she decided to walk over to it to check for a tag or a collar. But as she started towards it, the dog stood itself up on its hind legs, and it towered above her. This couldn't be a dog. It was too big. She could now see that it was something else entirely. Not a pet dog. Maybe a wolf? It was the only plausible answer that her brain could come up with. It was taller than any dog she'd ever seen, and its fur was matted and dirty. Its eyes were wild and feral, and it was obvious that it wasn't happy being in the same space as her. Erica's mind was firing in all directions. Now the creature looked like a werewolf, and her heart raced as adrenaline started pumping through her veins. Her mind swirled with thoughts of what could happen to her. And right then, the creature charged at her. She screamed, partly out of fear, partly out of surprise that this was actually even happening, and she started running back towards the stairs. She turned around to look for Waylon. She saw that the dog was right behind her, running too, with Waylon rushing up behind it. She screamed again, and this time people down the beach turned around to look. Waylon was barking wildly at the creature, and it finally stopped, but it stood its ground, growling and snarling. Erica was standing there terrified, thinking for sure that this thing was going to kill her. But then, something miraculous happened. To this day, Erica says she wishes she knew what happened, like if it was something she did, or what. But the creature slowly backed away, keeping her in its sights the whole time. She watched it as it backed up until it came to an outcropping and darted away out of sight. Where did it go, she thought? Or more importantly, where did it come from? Erica and Waylon ran back up the stairs, zigzagging their way back up the hill and to her car. It was honestly the stuff of nightmares. They reached the top, and Erica fumbled for her keys in her zipped jacket pocket, shaking yet quickly trying to get the car door opened and get them inside. Once in the car, she turned the key in the ignition, put the car in drive, and hit the gas, turned the wheel. The car spun around in a tight circle in the middle of the road. She was now facing the way back home. She gunned it, and the car sped off just as she saw the quickly moving shadow of what looked like the creature hurling itself up and over the hill, towards her car. She drove home faster than ever before, burst through the door, screaming and basically, incoherently telling Todd what had happened. He didn't believe her at first, but she had terror in her eyes to back up her story, and soon they were calling the police and watching the news to see if there were any other sightings. Amazingly, there was another woman. The sighting was from a woman who lived in the area. She lived in the vicinity of Short Beach, and she saw what she described as a huge black dog. But there was no mention of it standing on its hind legs, though. And so the police just dismissed Erica's sighting as a mistake, a trick of the light as the sun was setting. That dismissal led her into anxiety and PTSD that she's still trying to recover from. With no one in authority believing her, she started to doubt herself. Maybe it was just a trick of the light. But without fail, she continued to know in her heart that it really happened. Anyway, in the end, Todd and Erica wanted to share this encounter with us because they know that there are creatures like this running around. And they just want people to be aware of it and to know that others are out there who do believe. Their final message is to believe in yourself. Believe that you saw what you saw, and don't let anybody tell you differently. Hi, Lilith. I was walking around in a wooded area one evening with two friends during the summer of 2011. I don't want to disclose exactly where it happened since there's still some strange activity going on now, and I don't want those involved to be at risk. Anyway, on this particular night, my friends and I had stupidly decided to take a walk in the woods after happy hour at a local bar. We had nothing else to do and didn't feel quite like going home just yet, and we enjoyed sometimes getting away from the city lights. So we drove off to a local park, parked, got out of the car, and headed down one of the nearby trails. We knew full well that the sign said the park closed at dusk, but after a few beers, we didn't really care about the rules. I know, we were stupid. Anyway, after we got a bit into the woods and away from the city lights with only moonlight, I began to notice what looked like movement of large animals darting around in the woods. I kept getting quick glances of shadows darting around. At first, I thought I was seeing things on account of just leaving happy hour, but once I had my friends look too, we all agreed that something weird was definitely out there. We decided to stop walking and stand in one place, stand in sort of a circle, but with our backs to each other so that we could all see out. We stood there and we watched. However, none of us were in a super patient state of mind, and within only about 5 minutes, it seemed to all of us like nothing more was going to happen. So we all sort of relaxed a bit, when all of a sudden, something slid out from behind a tree and charged our circle. It was huge, and it happened so fast that we didn't have time to effectively react. But luckily, my one friend managed to kick the creature with his foot, while the other managed to grab and hold onto the fur on its head. I thought that was a pretty stupid idea, but I was frozen with fear and I had no idea what to do. I literally could not think. All that was flying around in my head was if we would all be able to make it out alive. And that's when the creature that my friend was holding on to started thrashing around and howling, which made me think of a werewolf movie where the creature is actually transforming into a dog. I don't even know if that's a real movie, but I kid you not, that's what came to my head at that moment. Obviously, this thing we were dealing with was huge, and it was able to break free of my friend's grip instantly. Anything could have happened next, but we all watched as it ran off into the woods in the direction that we had previously seen all those figures moving around. My two friends then sprinted out of there, but only because I couldn't move, I stayed back for a moment to try to process what had just happened. I just couldn't believe that my friends had sort of fought back at this thing. It was crazy. Anyway, I was finally able to run back to the car, and I jumped in, joining the other two who had run off before me. I was so shaken up that I didn't even think about yelling at them about leaving me back there, and I just sat there for a few minutes trying to calm down before I could even function enough to start and drive the car. I asked them what they both thought we had just seen. They both thought either dogman or werewolf, but none of us was really versed at the time on these things, and so none of us was exactly sure. I didn't really want to think about it anymore right then, so I just turned on the car and started driving out of the park. I really don't know what to think of what we all saw. Part of me wonders if we saw the only one, or if there are more that we didn't see. But all three of us saw all those creepy shadows, and we all have the same memories, so it must be true that there were more than just one. But let me tell you, what happened to us is certainly not something you want to have happen to you, especially when you are in a dark forest. All three of us are still affected by that night, and it's one experience that I'll never be able to forget, even if I wanted to. Lastly, I'll share with you that I'm a bit worried about the future. I'm pretty sure those things don't fear the human race, and I have a feeling that they're going to be way more dangerous. Our next encounter comes to us from Utah's Zion National Park, one of the oldest inhabited places in the United States. Habitation there started roughly 8,000 years ago with small groups of Native American families. Although Zion is a relatively small park as far as national parks go, it's still one of the most popular in the United States. It's estimated that over 4 million people visited the park in 2019. However, Zion is not to be taken lightly. It can also be dangerous there. In 2017, there were 17 search and rescue operations conducted in the park. More recent numbers are yet unknown. One of those cases was the disappearance of a woman in her 30s named Amanda. Amanda was an experienced hiker who had visited Zion many times before. That summer, she called her mom to tell her she was planning a solo hike there. Now, this was not unusual for her since she was an experienced hiker and had done this kind of thing before, even many times at Zion, since she lived just north of Las Vegas. However, her mom had a bad feeling about it that day, even though she didn't know why, and asked her not to go. Amanda reassured her mom that she would be fine, and she insisted that she knew what she was doing, and that she would call when she got back to cell service. But that was the last time anybody ever heard from her. The last known footage of Amanda was of her hiking in the background of another hiker's video, about a mile from where her boots were ultimately found. The footage showed her walking alone on the trail, but there's no way to know what happened to her after she walked off camera. A massive search effort was launched when her mother reported her missing. The search party looked for her day and night. Flyers were posted, but they couldn't find any trace of her. They scoured the park, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. There was no sign of a struggle, no footprints leading away from the boots. It was as if she had just taken them off and walked away in her socks. But because her boots were found, the search party surmised that she had to be somewhere in the park. They just didn't know where. The search for Amanda went on for weeks, but no further evidence was found. Park authorities started to wonder if she had somehow left the park on her own or if possibly somebody had abducted her. But still, the boots found left behind didn't add up. Even after the official search was called off, Amanda's mother refused to give up hope. She set up residence near the park and continued to comb the park herself day after day in the desperate hopes of finding her daughter. But sadly, Amanda was never found, and her case remains unsolved. Conspiracy theorists who have homed in on the boots being left behind have postulated that she was abducted by aliens. Some theories are less far-fetched and instead suggest that she merely took off her boots to adjust something, walked around a bit, but lost her footing and fell into one of the nearby canyons. Others still believe that she was taken by a cult or murdered. The list of theories goes on and on, but the truth is that nobody really knows what happened to Amanda. She simply disappeared in Zion National Park, never to be seen again. So if you're planning on hiking in Zion, please remember that it is beautiful, but potentially dangerous. Stay on the trails, hike with a partner, and let somebody know where you are going and when you expect to be back. Most importantly, if you see something suspicious, say something. You could save a life. Let me know what you think about these stories in the comments below. And don't forget to check out Donovan Dread, who releases almost every single day. Also, if you like true crime, then check out Donovan Dread True Crime. There are new releases several times a week.